Ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Representative for the great state of Alaska, the Honorable Nick Begich III. A year ago, I stood before you newly sworn into Congress as a freshman member, and I must admit I had a lot to learn. I had to learn how the halls of Congress really worked, how legislation actually moves. I learned how politics in Washington can stall progress, or if you're persistent enough, how we can drive legislation forward. I came ready to work, but I came knowing I needed to learn. And here's something else that I have learned. Alaskans expect results, not symbolic victories, real, durable victories written into law. Alaskans can and should expect a different standard. The promise of statehood was simple, that Alaska would have the right to develop our resources, the right to self-determination, and the right to govern our future and build prosperity for future generations of Alaskans. Today, I stand before you to report that promise is being delivered. In just over 12 months, we have reopened land, passed bills at record-breaking pace, accelerated permitting, strengthened aviation safety, strengthened our Coast Guard, and positioned Alaska at the center of America's energy and Arctic strategy. This is the new standard for delivering results, and I'm here today to report back about the hard-fought victories that we have secured for Alaska. There is a new benchmark set, and now is the time for this legislature to meet it. So to the President of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, and members of the legislature, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of all of Alaskans in our state. I also want to recognize my peers in the Alaska Congressional Delegation, Senator Murkowski and Senator Sullivan. In Washington, we share a common mission to fight for Alaska and deliver results for the people that we serve. There are a couple familiar faces and new seats that I'd like to mention as well. Senator Kathy Tilton, Senator George Rauscher, congratulations on your new roles here in the state Senate. You've never been shy about asking the hard questions, and Alaska is better for it. I'm excited to keep working together for the Mat-Su and for the whole state. And there are a couple new faces in the chamber. Congratulations to our recently appointed members of the House, Representative Garrett Nelson and Representative Steve St. Clair. It's my honor to address you here for the first time, and I'm looking forward to working with you both on things that matter most to Alaskans. To my family, my wife Darna and our son Nicholas, thank you. Your support makes this work possible. I'm also grateful to our Alaska and DC team working long into the night and weekends to serve Alaskans with integrity and urgency. And to the people of Alaska, thank you for the trust that you have placed in me. I'd like to take a moment to honor someone many of you served alongside, someone who served this state with great conviction, Craig Johnson. Craig knew his district, he knew his values, and he showed up year after year because he believed Alaska was worth fighting for. To his family and to everyone who called him a friend and colleague, know that Alaska is grateful for the legacy that he built. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to honor those American service members who we recently lost in the Middle East. We honor their courage, we honor their families, and we reaffirm a simple truth: their sacrifice will never be forgotten. First and foremost, our priority must always be the safety of American service members and the protection of the United States. The threats our troops face today are real. For decades, the Iranian regime has fueled aggression across the Middle East, supported terrorist organizations, threatened international shipping routes, and armed proxy groups that have targeted Americans and our allies. Iran's pursuit of nuclear capabilities, its support for terrorist networks like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and its growing alignment with America's adversaries represent one of the most serious national security threats that we face. The United States cannot afford complacency against a regime that has repeatedly demonstrated hostility toward our country and our allies. Targeted military actions against elements of Iran's nuclear and offensive capabilities are designed to confront those threats and protect American lives. But we must also remain clear-eyed about our responsibilities. Congress has a constitutional role in overseeing military operations and ensuring that any mission is clearly defined, strategically sound, and properly supported. The goal must always be the same: protect American lives, fight to win, and ensure that every mission has a clear purpose and a clear path forward. That is the responsibility of both the President and the Congress. And it is a responsibility that I take seriously on behalf of every American, every Alaskan. Turning our attention closer to home, I'd like to speak to the devastating damage caused by Typhoon Halong in western Alaska. In the aftermath of the storms, I sat down with the displaced families at the Alaska Airlines Center in Anchorage and listened to their stories. In the time I spent with those brave Alaskan families, I recognized something that was surprising. These were families who lost homes, families who were separated from their communities, families who were staring down a long road to recovery. But even in the midst of hardship, these families exhibited incredible courage and determination. We know the recovery for these communities is going to be long. To the federal, state, and local teams who stepped up immediately to assist in those in need, thank you. You saved lives and reminded us once again why you are so critical to Alaskans in moments of trouble. The scars will persist, and the recovery will be challenging. But my team and I continue to support recovery efforts, either to rebuild or to relocate as those communities arrive at those self-determinant decisions. When I stood here last year, I was early in the job. I told you that I came to listen, and I told you we had a unique window of opportunity to achieve historic wins for Alaska. And today, I'm back to tell you this. Despite the slimmest majority in U.S. House history and the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, we have delivered for Alaska. After just over a year, 11 of the bills that I have sponsored have passed the House. Five of those bills have been signed into law. In fact, my office leads all of Congress, both in bills signed into law and bills passed out of the House. My team and I are setting a record-breaking pace for the most productive first term ever in the United States House. That said, we are not slowing down. Just last week, Cape Fox Land Entitlement Finalization Act marked our 6th sponsored bill to pass the Senate. This bill itself will open opportunities for power generation and tourism while completing the final Cape Fox land conveyance under ANCSA. These wins happen because our team stays focused. We build coalitions, we seek opportunities for support, and we put in the work. Our mission, both yours and mine, is to deliver results that can be measured in land returned to Alaskans, acreage made available, investment committed, projects developed, and jobs created. This is the reasonable expectation of Alaskans that we serve. We know that for Alaska, we have a prosperous future We need more development in order to make that happen. And right now, the conditions for development are better than they have been in a generation. We finally opened the federal gates for Alaska. The question is, are we ready to walk through them? One of the most important responsibilities we have as a state and as a nation is to keep our commitments, and that certainly includes commitments made to Alaska's Native people. That's why I have fought for, and more importantly, delivered 3 key bills during my first year in Congress. H.R. 42, the Alaska Native Settlement Trust Eligibility Act. This ended the practice of counting settlement trust payments as income when determining eligibility for federal benefits. For too long, a flaw in federal law forced Alaska Native elders and individuals with disabilities to choose between their trust benefits and programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and Social Security. With this law, we have changed that. The Alaska Native Village Municipal Lands Restoration Act. This returned more than 11,500 acres to Alaska Native Village corporations, land that had been locked in bureaucratic limbo for 50 years as a set-aside for municipalities in these areas that never formed. That land can now be used for housing, infrastructure, and community development. H.R. 410, the Vietnam-era Veterans Land Allotment Extension Act. This extends the Native Veteran Allotment Program through 2030 so that no eligible veteran's claim expires before it is processed. If you served our country, you shouldn't lose your rightful claim because of a federal delay. H.R. 410 was signed by the President in December, and I'm grateful to have gotten this important piece of legislation across the finish line in partnership with Senator Sullivan. These are policies that have been creating uncertainty for our Alaska Native communities for years. And now, after many attempts and work from past delegation members and so many in-state stakeholders, I'm proud to report that we've achieved durable solutions. Now let me turn to the issue that has defined Alaska's relationship with Washington for nearly half a century, and that is energy. For more than 40 years, Alaska has lived in a cycle of authorization and obstruction. ANWR has been debated since 1980. The National Petroleum Reserve, land set aside explicitly for energy production, opened, closed, restricted, reopened. The Central Yukon locked away through midnight rulemaking. Every few years, Washington has changed direction. Projects stalled, investment dwindled, and jobs disappeared before they could even be created. Alaska has never lacked resources. What we have lacked is certainty. That changed during my first year in Congress, and it changed permanently. And it changed because we did not settle for executive promises. We wrote law. Last year, 3 Congressional Review Act resolutions I sponsored were signed into law. First, the 1002 area has been the most contested region in American energy policy for 45 years. Congress authorized development in 2017. The prior administration halted it. We overturned that decision and permanently restored access to 1.16 million acres with an estimated 7.7 billion barrels of beautiful Alaskan crude. Second, in the Central Yukon, 13 million acres in one of Alaska's most impoverished regions, locked up through a plan designed to permanently strike through Alaska's right to responsibly develop its resources. Now reopened for energy, mineral, and infrastructure development. Third, the National Petroleum Reserve, a region specifically designated for energy production. The Biden plan closed nearly half of it. We restored the 2020 management plan, built with North Slope tribal consultation, locking in certainty so the rules don't flip every election cycle. And here's why it matters. Under the Congressional Review Act, agencies are permanently barred from issuing substantially similar rules. No longer will a president be able to simply flip a switch and reinstate these restrictions on Alaska's resources. That is the difference between executive action and legislation. Executive action can be reversed, but legislation endures. Within the broader budget reconciliation framework Congress passed last year, we secured statutory mandates requiring regular lease sales in our most prospective energy basins. These are not optional sales, they're not discretionary sales, they are mandatory. Through restored access, increased royalty sharing, and durable statutory certainty, we have created pathways for billions in future energy revenue for the state of Alaska. This includes a dramatic increase in Alaska's future royalty share on these leases from 50% to 70% beginning in 2035. This is structural, generational reform for Alaska, and now we are seeing those reforms being implemented. Just recently, the Bureau of Land Management announced that it will hold the first oil and gas lease sale in the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska since 2019. Consider that for just a moment. The first lease sale in the NPRA in 7 years. More than 600 tracts across approximately 5.5 million acres will be offered on March 18th of this year. And this will be the first lease sale conducted under the new statutory framework established under the Working Families Tax Cut Act. That sale is the direct result of legislative action, and it is proof that Alaska's provisions are being implemented. Responsible development in the National Petroleum Reserve is critical to our state's economy and to America's energy security. By holding timely lease sales and following the law, the federal government is honoring congressional intent to unlock Alaska's extraordinary resource potential. And for Alaska communities, this obviously matters. Lease revenues strengthen working families. They help fund public services. They improve affordability across our state. When we invest in Alaska's resources, we are, by extension, investing in Alaska's people. The National Petroleum Reserve was created for one purpose: energy production. The federal government set that land aside so that America would have a source of strategic energy security. We are living in such a moment. Energy security is national security. It affects fuel prices, home heating costs, global alliances, and geopolitical leverage. And Alaska is central to that calculus. Critically, Alaskans understand stewardship better than anyone. We live here, we hunt here, we fish here, we raise our families here. Responsible development is common sense, and the restored management plan for NPRA was built with that North Slope local consultation. Lease sales are conducted under modern environmental standards. Infrastructure development is subject to rigorous review. But there is a difference between review and paralysis. For too long, Washington has conflated the two. What we have done over the past year is restore balance, allowing responsible development to proceed under clear, durable rules. And let me speak directly to the broader economic impact. Energy development does not exist in isolation. It supports construction jobs, aviation, marine services, engineering, hospitality, logistics, and small businesses across the state. It supports school funding, public safety, and infrastructure investment. When development moves forward, the economic ripple touches every region. The March 18th lease sale is the beginning of a new chapter, and it sends a signal to global markets that Alaska is a serious opportunity in a region far more stable than many abroad. For decades, companies hesitated because policy uncertainty made long-term planning quite difficult. Today, we can say with confidence that Alaska's federal framework is stable. Stable policy attracts capital. Capital creates jobs. Jobs retain and grow our population, and growth strengthens our schools, our healthcare system, and makes a good life in the last frontier possible. The door that was closed for many years is now open. And unlike before, it cannot simply be shut by an administrative action. This is the work that I'm most proud of in my first year in Congress, not because it makes headlines, but because it changes the trajectory of this state. For 40 years, Alaska argued about whether we would be allowed to develop. The debate is now over. Many Alaskans, perhaps many of you in this body, sit here today because of the economic opportunities that the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline brought to Alaska in the 1970s. You, your parents, and for some, even your grandparents, accepted the bold challenge to build what was the most ambitious project of its time. Many believed it couldn't be done. Some found reason to say no. But thank God that those who came before us were bold. They provided a resource for us today that we have the privilege of debating only because they had the courage to say yes. In this moment, you are faced with the same decision and the same opportunity to unlock prosperity for the next generation of Alaskan families by supporting the LNG pipeline. The world's demand for reliable energy is growing. Our allies want it. Our competitors are trying to lock up markets. And Alaska has something that the world needs, a stable supply from a stable country. On my visits last year to Japan, Taiwan, and Korea with the House Natural Resources Committee, the message I heard was consistent. They want energy security, they want reliability, and they want partners that they can trust. Alaska checks every box, but only if we build. Markets do not wait. Global LNG capacity is projected to grow dramatically by 2030. Buyers will sign contracts, competing projects will move, and Alaska cannot afford to delay. And as we well know, this is not just an export project. Lower in-state energy costs have the chance to dramatically impact every sector in Alaska, from manufacturing to mining to our household utility bills. Energy affordability provides economic competitiveness to our state. The federal path is largely cleared, but investors also need state-level clarity, fiscal predictability, and simplicity. Scrutinize it carefully, model it thoroughly, but my request to you is not to become a roadblock. Alaska LNG is a jobs project. It is a national security project. It is a cost of living project for Alaskans. And it is an in-state development project because when energy costs drop, everything else here becomes possible. This is about making Alaska attractive for investors. That means both Wall Street and Main Street, because at the end of the day, and this is really important, hear what I'm saying on this. At the end of the day, families are making an investment decision too. Where do they invest their time, their money, and their future? And they're making those decisions right now based on what we're doing in Washington and here in Juneau. Opening the land is step one. Getting projects permitted and built is step two. That is why I am proud to co-sponsor the SPEED Act, advanced by the House Natural Resources Committee in November on a bipartisan basis. The SPEED Act does not weaken environmental protections, it strengthens America's ability to build. It ensures NEPA works the way it was intended, efficient, transparent, and focused, not as a judicial weapon to shut down projects permanently. According to S&P Global, in the United States, the average time from discovery to the first truckload of ore for a U.S. mine is 29 years. 29 years. Our competitors do not require 29 years to develop a mine. The process is broken and must be fixed. If Alaska is to lead in critical minerals, LNG infrastructure, transmission, roads, and ports, we must align our permitting timelines with the competitive reality. In Alaska, we are in some respects further ahead than most people realize on permitting. In August, Alaska became the first state in the nation to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Permitting Council under the FAST 41 program. That agreement connects Alaska's Office of Project Management and Permitting directly with the Federal Permitting Council to streamline reviews, coordinate timelines, and reduce federal permitting time by as much as 25%. The executive director of the Permitting Council said she wants to triple the number of Alaska projects on that federal dashboard. And that is already happening. Alaska LNG completed its Fast 41 process ahead of schedule in December. Graphite One's Graphite Creek project, Alaska's first critical mineral project on the dashboard, is on track for construction approvals by late 2026. The Nikolai Nickel project was added in November. Nickel, cobalt, platinum, palladium, copper, and chromium in interior Alaska. Red Dog and Greens Creek have transparency status on the board, and NANA Regional Broadband Network is also on that permitting dashboard. And more projects are coming. For decades, Alaska's problem wasn't a lack of resources, it was unnavigable federal barriers, and those barriers are coming down, and the permits are getting issued. Now, it's our job in this chamber to do all we can to match that momentum. If Alaska is going to grow, if we are to retain families, attract workers, and keep our young people here, people need to be able to keep more of what they earn. That's why we passed historic tax relief on working families. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Those two provisions alone are saving tipped and overtime workers thousands of dollars per year. For families, that means extra groceries, school supplies, heating fuel for winter, and savings when life's emergencies inevitably arrive. And here's what it looks like in real life. Norrin Kreiner owns Kreiner's Diner in Anchorage. For 15 years, Kreiner's has been a community institution in Anchorage. After the unexpected passing of her husband, Andy, Norrin continued carrying forward the legacy that they built together. As a small business owner in one of the highest cost states in the country, she understands what affordability means. And this year, one of her head servers saved over $3,000 thanks to the no tax on tips provision. $3,000. That's actual relief to actual Alaskans. And it's helping Norrin retain valued employees and provide meaningful financial stability for her staff. That is what pro-worker policy looks like. But we did not stop there. We made the 199A small business deduction permanent, preserving a provision projected to generate $750 billion in economic growth and create more than 1 million new Main Street jobs. We expanded and strengthened opportunity zones, unlocking more than $100 billion in new investment and supporting over 1 million jobs in rural and distressed communities, including here in Alaska. We made the paid leave tax credit permanent, supporting working families and expanding child care access. We passed the no tax on Social Security provision, delivering $63 billion in tax relief to America's seniors. This is by far the largest tax cut for American seniors in United States history. And we supported the return of Made in America manufacturing, allowing 100% first-year bonus depreciation on outlays for new factories, factory improvements, equipment, and research and development. That means investment. That means jobs. That means supply chains are built here instead of overseas. That is what delivering for working families looks like. Now let me turn to an issue that defines Alaska, not just economically, but also culturally. Our fisheries. You know the crisis at the state level. You see it in communities that are hurting. You see it in families who are wondering if the way of life they were raised living can endure. Here's what I'm doing at the federal level. I'm pushing for accountability, data, and real tools that get us back to abundance. And that is why I'm working with our delegation on bycatch reduction. The legislation we have introduced would prioritize technology that supports research, bycatch reduction, and protection of marine seafloor habitat, advances electronic monitoring and reporting, provides assistance for deploying gear and technology that reduces bycatch and habitat contact from trawl fishing gear, and it would support ongoing marine environmental data collection, especially in the Bering Sea, Aleutian Islands, and the Gulf of Alaska. We must get back to abundance. We must combat destructive practices. We must restore balance and accountability in fisheries management. And let me say something plainly. The North Pacific Fishery Management Council was created to serve all user groups in Alaska's fishing sector. When any one sector dominates the conversation, the system stops reflecting the people it is meant to represent. Balance at the council helps fulfill its fiduciary responsibility, restores trust, and delivers better outcomes for our fisheries. My commitment to Alaska's fisheries and the people who depend on them is this: we must continue the strategic work that we are doing in Congress to restore balance to the fisheries and balance to the council. If Alaska is going to deliver, we have to be connected and we have to be safe. That means ports and roads and broadband. It means aviation safety. It means military readiness and Coast Guard presence. It means being a leader in space and the Arctic. And for those who wonder, what do I mean by space? We have a spaceport in Alaska. A lot of folks don't realize that. That's right. And they're doing some really great work. They're doing some really great work. My compliments to the chef over there, because I will tell you, as I have these conversations down in DC, I'm talking with people in the space industry, and they're running out of capacity because of all these launches that are happening down in the Cape and elsewhere. This is going to be very important for Kodiak and for the state. Last year, Congress secured major investments to modernize our national air traffic control system. $12.5 billion to replace aging infrastructure at the FAA, update radar and telecommunications, modernize facilities and towers, and address the air traffic controller shortage. This matters in Alaska more than anywhere else in the entire nation. Alaska's aviation accident rate is more than twice the national average, and this legislation includes Alaska-specific safety provisions. $80 million to install at least 50 AWAS sites, 60 VWAS sites, 64 weather camera sites, and weather stations. $40 million for the FAA Alaska Aviation Safety Initiative beyond the weather systems funding. This is the kind of practical investment that saves lives. Here in Alaska, we're at the center of America's national security strategy. And after years of deferred maintenance, aging infrastructure, and strategic drift in the Arctic, we are finally seeing investments that match Alaska's strategic importance. Last year, Congress secured a $25 billion down payment on the Golden Dome for America initiative, a layered missile defense system that positions Alaska as the central pillar to homeland defense. That investment includes nearly $2 billion for improved missile defense radars, strengthening capabilities at sites like Clear Space Force Station and Cobra Dane on Shemya Island. It includes $800 million for next-generation interceptors headed to Fort Greely, reinforcing the shield that protects not just Alaska, but the entire United States. We also secured $12 billion for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, expanding military exercises and operational readiness across the Indo-Pacific, with Alaska Command playing a critical role. An additional $9 billion supports air superiority missions that directly benefit Eielson Air Force Base and Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. And $9 billion more improves quality of life for our service members and their families, housing, childcare, and health care. Because readiness doesn't just depend on equipment, it depends on service members and their families. Shipbuilding saw a $29 billion investment, strengthening the industrial base that keeps our Navy strong and ensures our Arctic capability keeps pace with growing global competition. And $115 million was directed toward exploring and developing existing Arctic infrastructure, including places like the shuttered Adak Naval Air Facility. And for Alaska, nowhere does presence matter more than with the United States Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is woven into the very fabric of Alaska. our brave men and women of the United States Coast Guard perform search and rescue in some of the most harsh conditions on Earth, while projecting American sovereignty in a region where other nations are rapidly expanding their footprint. That is why these investments are historic. We are seeing the construction of new heavy and medium icebreakers, vessels that will finally give America year-round capability in polar waters. We are adding new cutters, offshore patrol cutters, fast response cutters, and other vessels that will strengthen maritime security and fisheries enforcement across the Bering Sea and the Gulf of Alaska. New helicopters and CJ-130J aircraft are coming online, along with upgraded maritime surveillance equipment, many of these assets destined for Alaska. We secured $300 million to support the home porting of the icebreaker Storis in Juneau, anchoring Arctic operations firmly in our state. And more than $4 billion is being invested nationwide to repair docks, hangars, and shore facilities, helping address long-standing infrastructure backlogs in communities like Sitka, Seward, Kodiak, and St. Paul. America has talked about the Arctic for a long time. Now we're investing in it. And these investments send a clear message. Alaska is the front line for Arctic defense and our national security strategy. In an era of renewed great power competition, with increased activity from Russia and China in the Arctic, the United States is finally recognizing Alaska for the strategic advantage that we provide. Now, I want to address something fundamental to both national and state security. America, and indeed Alaska, are safer with a strong, secure southern border. For years, we watched chaos unfold at our southern border. Illegal crossings surged, cartels expanded their influence, deadly narcotics flowed into American communities. The instability and flow of drugs that originated from a porous southern border reached nearly every state in this country, including ours. But over the last year, we have seen a seismic turnaround. Under President Trump's renewed commitment to securing our borders, illegal border crossings have plummeted to their lowest levels since the 1970s. For the first time in over 50 years, the United States experienced negative net migration among illegal aliens, reversing decades of unchecked influx and restoring control over our sovereignty. Nearly 3 million illegal aliens have left the country. More than 675,000 deportations have occurred, including over 400,000 individuals charged with or convicted of crimes. An estimated 2.2 million self-deportations followed the restoration of enforcement and deterrence practices. And for 9 straight months, no illegal aliens were released into the interior of the United States. That matters for Alaska because border security is not just about immigration. It's about narcotics. It's about cartels. It's about fentanyl. In 2025 alone, fentanyl trafficking at the southern border was cut by 56% compared to the previous year. We passed the Halt Fentanyl Act, a bill I proudly co-sponsored, permanently classifying fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I drugs. More than 10,000 individuals with narco-terrorist ties were blocked from entering the United States at our ports of entry. Under this administration, enforcement became real again. When you enforce the law, chaos recedes. And when you weaken cartels, American communities are safer. But let's be clear, fentanyl is still killing Americans. It is still reaching Alaska, and it is still devastating families. And while border enforcement is critical to stopping supply, we must also confront the demand side, the health and addiction crisis that continues to affect communities across our state. For many Alaskans, health care is physically unavailable. Travel times can take hours or even days before a provider can be reached. Workforce shortages are chronic, and facilities are often under-resourced. That's why we secured $50 billion for rural health care, the single largest investment in rural health care in American history. And Alaska is one of the top recipients nationwide. That reflects our large rural population, our geographic challenges, and our long-standing healthcare access needs. Under this program, Alaska will be eligible to receive well over $1 billion over the next 5 years to support targeted, system-wide investments that improve access to care and strengthen the long-term stability of our healthcare system. This fund helps us expand access here in Alaska, and it is an investment that I believe everyone in this room supports. It is real money and provides real structural support. It allows Alaska to expand telemedicine and mobile clinic models, stabilizes rural hospitals and long-term access points, recruit and retain providers with multi-year commitments suited for remote communities, and allows us to invest in digital infrastructure that expands specialty access. This program is designed to drive long-term rural health stability backed by significant federal funding, but I also want to say something very clear. We don't just have a healthcare access problem in America, we have a healthcare cost problem in America. One clear and obvious example is the cost of prescription drugs. Right now, the United States healthcare consumer is paying the highest global rates for common prescription drugs. Meanwhile, other developed nations enjoy the benefit of American innovation at a discount. At a discount. Drugs developed by American pharmaceutical companies should not cost more for American families than for foreign consumers. It's not right, and in fact, it is obviously and fundamentally unfair. If we want to address the cost of health care, we have to address the fundamental structural problems in the system. Before I close, I want to share one more development from Washington that matters to every Alaskan family. Last week, I introduced legislation in Congress to make the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend federally tax-free. For decades, the Permanent Fund dividend has represented something unique in American governance. It reflects the promise made at statehood that Alaska's resource wealth would be shared with the people who live here. But today, the federal government taxes that dividend. That means a portion of Alaska's resource revenue intended for Alaskans, is being sent to Washington instead. My bill, H.R. 7760, aims to remedy that. The legislation amends the Internal Revenue Code to exclude payments to citizens from certain sovereign wealth funds, including Alaska's Permanent Fund, from federal taxable income. In simple terms, Alaskans would keep the full value of their Permanent Fund dividend without paying federal income tax on it. That means more money in the pockets of Alaskan families. It means stronger household finances in rural communities where the dividend is often a critical part of annual income. And it recognizes Alaska's unique model of sharing resource wealth directly with its residents. The Permanent Fund is a symbol of the statehood compact, and Alaskans should receive those benefits without Washington taking yet another cut. This is another step toward ensuring that Alaska's resource wealth truly benefits the Alaskan people. And that brings me to my final message this morning. In just over a year, we have moved real legislation. We have reopened access. We have accelerated permitting. We have secured historic Arctic and defense investments. We have opened new doors for rural health. The federal barriers are coming down. The permits are moving. The investment is flowing. But this window of opportunity for Alaska will not remain open forever. I'm doing my job at the federal level, but this obviously requires partnership from you. The pace of the last year was fast because we made it fast. And now I'm calling on this legislature to continue the fight and do the job Alaskans deserve and respect. First, on fisheries accountability. Alaska's 6 appointed seats on the North Pacific Fishery Management Council are nominated by the governor with no state-level statutory criteria for who fills which seat. This council manages 900,000 square miles of federal waters and makes decisions worth billions of dollars. There is nothing in state law ensuring that those seats represent the full range of Alaska's fishing interests. Magnuson-Stevens reform is one vector that my team and I are working on, but state legislation establishing qualifications and sector representation criteria for each Alaska seat can be done much more quickly. Second, workforce development. Energy, mining, timber, fisheries, LNG construction, military support, healthcare, all of it requires trained Alaskans. When LNG construction begins, we will need welders, pipe fitters, heavy equipment operators, marine engineers, all ready to go. That means investment in vocational and technical education, partnerships with the University of Alaska and AvTech, and industry-aligned programs. The development path only works if Alaskans are ready to do the work. Third, Alaskan LNG enabling legislation. The federal path is clear, but the state side also matters. The state's own consultants have said it plainly. Enabling legislation is essential. Investors need fiscal stability, clarity on property tax treatment, a stable production tax and royalty structure, and a state permitting process that matches federal speed. Scrutinize it, model it, demand independent analysis, but don't let process become the bottleneck. Every month of delay is a month that a competing project locks up a buyer that could have been ours. And remember what Alaska LNG does for in-state development. When energy costs drop, everything else becomes possible. My closing message to you is this: Alaska is unshackled. The obstacles are coming down. The permits are being approved. We are ready to deliver. I'm ready. My team is ready. Washington is moving, but opportunity is not self-executing. Seizing this opportunity requires state partners ready to match our speed. It requires workforce preparation. It requires fiscal discipline and strategic clarity. I am committed to doing my part as Alaska's only representative in the United States House, being your partner and your ally in Washington. I ask you to make the same commitment here in Juneau and deliver. The next generation of Alaskans deserves the opportunities that we have had. Thank you for the honor of addressing you today. God bless you. May God bless the great state of Alaska, and may God bless these United States.
Thank you, Representative Begich. He's agreed to take some questions, and we'll start with Representative, sorry, let me get this right, Representative Jimmy.
Well, Your Honor, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Representative Begich, the storm that struck southwestern Alaska this past October triggered the largest airlift in Alaskan history. This is the biggest long-term displacement of Alaskans from their own homes ever. Dozens of communities were impacted. 1,700 people in shelters. Over 200 people remain in hotels in Anchorage. 5 months later, unable to cook for themselves, unable to be with their communities, unable to grieve together. Those displaced by the storm have passed away in Anchorage, leaving families with funeral costs in the thousands, numbers unheard of in our villages where we care for our own. Since the storm, we have lost 4 young people from evacuated communities to suicide, 7 since last fall. From populations this small, this is catastrophic. Kipnuk and Guiglinguk have voted to relocate. Their people have made the most difficult decision a community can make. They have voted to move. But to where? With what federal funding? Right now, the answer is there is no answer. You are our only voice in the U.S. House of Representatives. You have been effective for Alaska. You have the ear of the administration in ways few members of Congress do. They promised relief for our people. Alaska requested 100 federal cost share to respond to this disaster. We've been denied. Now we are in appeal, fighting for funding. Meanwhile, families remain in hotels, the land still sits wounded, and our young people are dying. But as the nation wages conflict abroad, costing American taxpayers $1 billion every single day, I ask you plainly, what are you doing right now to secure federal funding for necessary to bring these families home, to build these communities back together, stronger, safer, together, to prepare for the next storm? Oyana.
Thank you. That's a well-articulated question. Let me say this. Number one, fully supportive of the 100% reimbursement request that has come in, and we are working with the administration on that to do what we can to reevaluate that reimbursement level. Number two, the rebuilding process, the relocation process, and then subsequent rebuild. It's going to be lengthy. Part of the reason that it's going to be lengthy, as many of you know, is that the construction season in this region of the state is very short. In some cases, you have to wait until the ground is frozen before you can start construction on some of these areas. As you point out, we have to decide where is this going to be built. That needs to be done in consultation with the local communities. Part of the problem that we have right now is that these village locations were in some cases selected by federal bureaucrats in low-lying areas. And so because of a decision that was made thousands of miles away from Alaska, local Alaskans are suffering years later. So we don't want to repeat that again. We want to make sure that we're selecting locations that are going to be durable so that families feel confident that they can go back. When I met with folks at the Alaska Airlines Center and downtown following the storms, I was hearing a lot of feedback from folks in the communities who were afraid to go back. They did not want to see this happen again. Elders wondering if they could recommend to their children and grandchildren that this was going to be safe for them. And we don't want that doubt to persist, and so it's going to be a lengthier process than I would like, or any of us would like, to rebuild and relocate these communities, but it needs to be done in a way that's durable so that people have the confidence to go back to their villages and know that they're going to be safe. And that's my commitment to those communities. That's my commitment to you, and we will work with you to find the best way forward to achieve that. Great question.
Thank you. Senator Bjorkman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Representative Begich, thank you so much for being here. We missed you over the weekend as you had to change your plans at the Safari Club International Banquet in Anchorage, but we understand why you couldn't make it. If you would have been there, you would have seen a map on the table that kind of listed the areas of federal land that have been locked up over the years and kind of put off limits to many people for hunting. And it'd be great if we could chat more about that sometime. But today's question talks a lot about really a dinner table issue that is health insurance and healthcare. You mentioned it briefly. However, with the passage of H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill, it'll have long effects on families and our state, including the Rural Health Transformation Project or program, and it will improve the efficiency and resilience of care across Alaska if we can execute it correctly. At the same time, it introduces challenges, including new cost shifting requirements for SNAP. And that administration is now going to fall heavily on the state and cost the state a bunch more money. Alaskans clearly understand the value of hard work and the dignity that comes from contributing to our communities. I appreciate the attention to ensuring that community engagement provisions provided in Medicaid with work requirements for SNAP are implemented with the appropriate safeguards. I think that's very important. However, many Alaskans are now uninsured following the loss of enhanced premium tax credits. Provider reimbursement rates under Medicaid and Medicare remain so low that the viability of many medical practices, they're at risk.
They're feeling like they're pressured to go out of business because the reimbursement rates are so low.
Access to primary care for senior citizens has become especially difficult, as many of those primary care doctors, they simply are refusing to see these patients that have these types of payers. That's especially troubling for folks in my district, where we have a large portion and growing of senior citizens who live there. Given these pressures, what steps can you take at the federal level to help Alaska move beyond the rigid structure of the Affordable Care Act toward an insurance and care model that is more affordable and better suited to Alaska's unique needs? How can we work together to ensure that Alaska is not burdened with rising Medicare costs for our seniors at a time when primary care is becoming increasingly difficult to obtain? Thank you.
That's a great question. It's well articulated as well. So we have to look at this from a supply and demand perspective, okay? And so I'm going to break down my response into some component pieces. First off, what we had seen in the enhanced COVID era premium tax credits that you mentioned was significant fraud at the lower end of that curve. And here's what was the genesis of it. Under that plan, there are $0 premiums, right? So some folks qualify for $0 premium. No, they don't have to pay anything at all for their Medicaid. It created, I believe, an unintended consequence where brokers were actually out there signing people up who didn't even know that they had care. And by some estimates, up to 40% of that group was fraudulent, okay? I have been on the record, and I'll say it here again today, if we see legislation that addresses the fraud in that program, I think it's something that we can look at for an off-ramp back into something that's more reasonable. In addition, though, we have to look at the supply of physicians, particularly in specialty practices in Alaska. We all understand in this room that there is a lack of supply and a lack of access. The Rural Health Transformation Fund attempts to address a large component of that, but it's not comprehensive in its addressing that component. Some of the things that can be done at the state level include licensure and continued investments in educational programs in nursing, pharmacy, and physician creation, right? We need more of these people. And in some cases, the industries themselves have a very strong lobby, and they want to throw up barriers because they're trying to protect their incumbency advantage. But the truth of the matter is we need more people in those spaces to be able to address the healthcare needs and the growing healthcare needs of Alaskans and Americans across the country. We also have to look at the demand side of the equation. You know, the MAHA movement is not just a slogan. There's a real reason why we need to be healthier. Because if we can lower demand on the healthcare system, we will lower the costs for everyone. Insurance rates will come down, the cost of care will come down, the system will be less stressed. And that is not always desirable for people to talk about because it requires us to make decisions individually, right? We're looking at strategies nationally to make our food supply healthier. We've become really great at making lots of food, but we have not been great at making lots of healthy food. And we need to return our attention to living a healthier lifestyle, and part of that is the federal regulatory framework. You know, there are tens of thousands of ingredients that are permitted to go into foods in the United States. When you go over to Europe, some of the other more developed nations, they don't allow the number of ingredients into their food because they have to prove that they're actually healthy, that they're good for you. And the regulatory changes that are being made under RFK Jr. are strong. I met with him, had a conversation with him about this just 2 weeks ago. And so I'm encouraged to see that we're focusing on the demand side of the equation too, because if we can make people healthier, it's far better than if they're not, right? I mean, I think it's RFK Jr. who said this, so I'm not going to steal his quote without attribution, but healthy people have 1,000 dreams. Sick people only have one dream. And we need to make sure that we're healthy. And so I think that has to be part of the mix, part of the policy mix as well.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. G. Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker. Representative, been a long time since our initial conversation in the rodeo grandstands in Palmer. And I don't know if you remember, but I reflect on it and appreciate it. You've been one of the most effective legislators, especially freshman legislators in this session, and arguably one of the most effective freshman legislators of all time. You've definitely set a high bar. So most of your work has impacted Alaska positively and directly, and other things that you've worked on, such as the Public Lands Military Readiness Act, has had far-reaching implications outside of Alaska. But as a freshman, the political quagmire that's often something that is only read about, I'm sure that you've experienced it. Something that I've experienced. It's been frustrating at times. However, there are bright spots, and positive, effective movement can be and is being made, which you're demonstrating and which I've experienced in this House as well. So questions are, two questions. How have you as a freshman navigated through these challenges to pass meaningful legislation for our state? And then also, what else are you hoping to accomplish in your first term?
Good questions. Yeah, you know, I would say this. You walk in as a freshman, as you're experiencing right now, and as everyone here has experienced, you don't know the people. There's a lot of process knowledge you have yet to learn. The committee process is this whole separate universe, right? And I think the biggest success factor has been building relationships, not just with colleagues on my side of the aisle, with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. You know, we work well together, and really politics is the art of the possible. So we're looking for things that we can actually get done. You can spend a lot of energy on the emotion of the job, and certainly that can feel good in the moment and be attractive in the moment. But the truth of the matter is, there's far more common ground than ever gets reported on the nightly news. You know, in fact, I was very surprised to learn this when I arrived in D.C. 90% or more of the legislation that passes out of the House is bipartisan. It's bipartisan. We see eye to eye on so many things. And I think identifying those areas of opportunities where we can work together for the benefit of the state, for the benefit of your district, of my district, which is the state, that's a core part of our mission. Now, we're going to have differences, obviously. That's why these bodies exist, so we can help to resolve those differences. And sometimes they're going to be impassioned. But when we walk out the chamber doors, and when I walk off the floor, it's over. We're back to work. We're having a constructive discussion about how we can move the ball forward. And what's been most surprising to me about that, taking that approach, there really is overlap. There really is support. And on our CRAs, I've had Democrats support those CRAs. On the SPEED Act, we had Republicans and Democrats working together. On the Alaska bills that we've delivered, most of those were delivered with unanimous support from Republicans and Democrats because they make sense. And I think that's one of the keys, is finding the areas where we can agree and get that stuff done. There'll always be the areas of disagreement, but find the areas where we agree and get that stuff done. In terms of your second question, what are we hoping to achieve in the remainder of our time? We've still got a lot of Alaska priorities left. One of the things that we just passed out of the House, key piece of legislation for many Alaskans, is the Chugach Land Exchange Bill. And you would not believe how challenging that was to get done. Some of these things may seem like they're simple, but they are not, because we are fighting with environmental NGOs that are outside of the state of Alaska that decide they know better about our lands. They put pressure on one side of the aisle or the other. And to my colleagues' credit, they stayed strong and lived up to their commitment on this bill, and we were able to move it over to the Senate. Same thing is true with the landless communities in Southeast Alaska that have been waiting 50 years for an opportunity to have their own lands, the 5 urban village corporations down here. We are well on our way. We got that bill out of the House Natural Resources Committee with unanimous support, right? So the work is not done. There's plenty of Alaska provisions that we are working on. Some of those provisions will be passed into law. Some of those provisions may not be passed into law. And if they are not, we will work on them in the next Congress. But we will keep pushing things forward. You know, not every bill is a touchdown pass. But every bill's putting yards on the board. We are getting points on the board for the state of Alaska, and we will continue to look for opportunities to do that. And let me just invite everyone here, and I'm not going to single anybody out, but I've met with many of you on both sides of the aisle in my office, and you know I am here to listen, and I am here to work with you. And where we can find agreement, we will work together on those issues. And so if you have ideas, reach out to us. You know, don't think that this is your only opportunity to speak with me. There's a lot, you can speak with me anytime you want. Reach out to our teams. We're here to be your voice. Even if we may see things differently on a couple issues, it doesn't mean we see things differently on everything. Good questions.
Thank you. Senator Kaufman.
Representative Begich, say thank you to start off with. I think there's show dogs and working dogs, and we're glad we got one that really pulls the sled. So just thanks for all the work you're doing to liberate Alaska's opportunity, its potential, and to improve, you know, what we experience here in the state with respect to federal action. So earlier you mentioned the gas line, and I just want to go back to that a little bit. And there's no bigger opportunity for Alaska than the potential of solving that 800-mile problem that we've got, of getting that gas into our homes and to market, and all that will come with that, all the good that will come of it. Could you just maybe go back into what we can do here from the perspective of there's what's happening federally, there's what, you know, the interested parties in the gas and all of that are doing, but then more, I guess more specifically, what should we do to avoid appearing like some of us are so skeptical that we're just willing to assume it's never going to happen and we act that way?
Yeah, you know, I think there are some important signals that the industry and investors really need to see. One, and this is my opinion, okay? This is one person's opinion, but one is really focused on the property tax structure for the gas line. It's going to be a massive asset. We understand that. It's going to be, let's call it 50 billion plus or minus, right? But it's going to be significant. If that gas line is taxed from day one at full freight, it can fundamentally change the rate of return for investors and drive them away from the project. And I think there's a couple creative ways that we might be able to deal with that. One is to provide a slope of relief, where the greatest amount of tax relief is provided at the beginning, and then that rises to a reasonable level. I think clearly, you know, we'd be giving something up if we do that. And I think there may be an opportunity in exchange for doing that to take some of that equity position that we've talked about. So that 25% equity position that the state has the option to take, well, if we're giving something up, maybe we should be getting something in return for that. I also think that there's an interesting opportunity to pre-commit royalty revenue from state-owned gas resources and potentially come up with some cash without having to tap any of our other funds in order to do it. And so I think there's some creative ways that we can be a partner in getting this done and in a way that is in the best interest of Alaska, not just because we got the project done, but because it's a good financial decision for us as well. I also think it's important for us to consider signaling to the market that we will help create customers here in the state for this gas, right? And I know there's a lot of conversation about data centers. Let's think about a data center. Do you know in Loudoun County, Virginia, where there's quite a few data centers, data center property tax revenue has lowered property taxes for the average family there by $3,000 a year plus. So this can be a tremendous resource. That downstream industry effect as it's being developed, it's property tax revenue, it's, you know, state corporate tax revenue, and it really importantly, it gives us a way to sell the royalty gas that we have. You get production taxes and all kinds of things that come from that. And I don't think we should shy away from those kinds of opportunities, whether they be in mining or data centers, because they can be large consumers of the power that we provide, and they're strong potential customers for us. So It's looking at the property tax structure and making sure we're having policies that invite customers to Alaska to purchase the gas we're going to produce.
Thank you. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congressman Begich, part of your sort of central to your agenda as a freshman has been cryptocurrency. I have a two-part question on cryptocurrency. The first part is about the establishment of the crypto standard to back the US dollar, something that I discussed with you in your office. Very grateful for that time. But as I said there, for me, cryptocurrency feels very unstable, not the best way to back the US dollar. Can you explain how the creation of the crypto standard would benefit everyday Alaskans?
That's a great.
Second part.
Go ahead.
Second part.
Yeah.
Second part is about a bill that you've sponsored, your HR 2032, I think, the Bitcoin Act of 2025.
Right.
Which would mandate that the federal government spend over $1 billion and purchase $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. This would potentially cause the value of Bitcoin to skyrocket. The question is, would you be willing to have an amendment to your bill that would forbid legislators from owning or trading cryptocurrency while legislating on cryptocurrency?
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yes. And in fact, okay, if I forget a part of your question, Representative, please come back to me because I want to make sure I'm addressing this directly. But because of the way that you ended that question, I want to start my response by talking about the Stop Insider Trading Act. And the Stop Insider Trading Act is a bill that I'm co-sponsoring in the House. I don't think that people who are elected to office should be trading stocks or cryptocurrencies while they're in office. We should not be doing that. Yes. So I have co-sponsored that. I am not trading while I'm in Congress, okay? Now, what does this bill do? It says that you can sell the stocks you own when you come into Congress, but you cannot buy new stocks, okay? And so I'm fully supportive of that, right? Now, in addition to that, when you talk about the cryptocurrency standard, really the Bitcoin standard, okay, let's talk about why do we have reserves at all? We have gold. We have the largest gold reserves in the world. We have the largest gold reserves in the world not because it's fun to look at or it's a fun story to tell about what might or might not be in Fort Knox, because we recognize that we need some backstop to the dollar should the dollar fail for some reason. And this is why not just the United States government, but governments across the world hold reserves. Now, some governments hold reserves in gold, in silver, in other commodities, and a growing percentage of governments outside of the United States are now holding Bitcoin as part of their reserves portfolio. So the idea is, firstly, to take the Bitcoin that has been seized legally, which we have some estimates over 200,000 Bitcoin that's been seized legally, and provide a mechanism for the Treasury to hold that as a part of our storehouse, as part of our reserves portfolio. The bill you're referring to, the Bitcoin Act, there's going to be a new bill that's coming forward, okay, and I will be introducing that bill. It's now called the American Reserves Modernization Act, and it removes the requirement to acquire Bitcoin. So that concern was expressed by you in my office, but is expressed by colleagues of mine on both sides of the aisle. We don't like to do bills that have no opportunity of passing. We're looking for ways to actually move things forward. What this would do now is it would establish the strategic reserve for those assets that the government already has, and it would allow us to at least have a mechanism for them to be stored. So we heard your feedback. We heard the feedback from others. We're changing that bill, and we'll be introducing it soon.
Thank you. We'll go to Senator Hoffman. We only have a few minutes left, so just encourage everyone to only ask one question and ask a question quickly. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming to us, Congressman Begich. You had some comments about energy, and energy is a very important topic to me and to all Alaskans. We continue to live in a state that has the highest energy costs in the United States. Many of our constituents spend up to 50% of their energy, their disposable income on energy. And I guess my question to you, when people are spending $13 a gallon for gas, over $1 a kilowatt for electricity, finding funds for their snow machines and their outboards. It's undeniable that Alaskans have high consumption of energy, but we also face the highest energy costs, I believe, in the United States. My question to you, and you talked about energy independence for countries. My question to you is, what do you think you can do to directly lower energy costs for Alaskans? Because every single Alaskan is affected by energy costs, and that is something that I've been working on. And I'd like to have a direct dialogue with you sometime about my ideas, what the federal government can do. But I would appreciate your comments for all the Alaskans that are watching, that are experiencing this financial burden.
It's a great question. Let me just say, I appreciate your service in this body, sir. You have done a fantastic job representing your district and your people, and I just want to extend my thanks and wish you the very best as you move into the next phase. And yes. And your question is such an important question, and it's one we've struggled with for so many years. And the reason that we've struggled with it is because we're such a large state and we are disconnected from each other in ways that places in the rest of the world, particularly in the lower 48, are not disconnected. We have multiple grids in the state. We have microgrids in most of the villages, right? And so the fact that we have to fly fuel in for many of these grids creates a structural cost problem that can't be addressed without a couple of different vectors. One, we need to have investments where it's possible in renewable infrastructure in those communities. And that is something that I have spoken with the administration about, because there's been sort of a broad brush applied to wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, right? And I've said, look, we are truly different in Alaska. Some of these villages will never be connected to the larger grid, and we have to have other solutions that will defray the cost of diesel, because diesel really is the driver of energy costs in most of rural Alaska. I have taken great pains to learn about geothermal in particular. We have huge potential. We've known that for a long time here in the state of Alaska. I sat down for 4 hours with the CEO of one of the nation's most sophisticated geothermal companies, a company called Fervo Energy. We had a direct conversation about the unit economics, the investor economics, how much energy gets produced, where that industry is going. I think that's going to be a major solution for many communities, not all, many communities that have geothermal resources in Alaska. I think the Power Cost Equalization Fund benefits dramatically when we have additional resource development in the state. And so resource development is tied directly to the Power Cost Equalization Fund's ability to fund and the defraying of those costs in rural parts of the state. So there's no silver bullet solution. I wish I could stand up here and say, if we just did this one thing, everything would be fixed, but it's not. It's more complex than that. I think also getting where it makes sense and where we can get support, getting roads to some of these communities would really be helpful, because it will lower the cost of not just energy, but everyday groceries, the cost of building in these communities. I know that comes with, some other issues, but for communities that are asking for it, for example, Koktovik up on the North Slope, they deserve a road if they want a road. So I think that providing additional access will help to drive costs down. Obviously, we all are fully familiar with Essential Air Service. I fought very hard with the administration early on to make sure that EAS was preserved. That had been lined out in the original budget coming from the administration. And myself and the senators worked very hard to make sure that people understood we need Essential Air Service in Alaska, and we will not accept not having it. So these are the things that we're fighting for. These are the things we're working on. And if you have ideas, we are ready to hear what those ideas are and see how we can put them into action.
Thank you. Our last question will be from Representative Costello.
Congressman, I was really pleased to hear you talk about the federal permitting dashboard and the permitting council. As you may know, the federal government has made federal funds available for states to create our own state permitting dashboards. How important do you think it is that Alaska be the first state in the nation to receive funds so that we can have a state permitting dashboard?
I'll tell you what, permitting dashboards for anyone who's been attached to a project where you're trying to get permits, they're invaluable because it is so easy, particularly for new operators, to come in and think that they've checked all the boxes and find out, oh, there's a whole set of boxes that you missed. Permitting dashboards and sort of, we'll call them permitting Sherpas, right? They're helping guide you through that permitting process to make sure that you're in full compliance with the law and that you're able to move quickly. You know, one of the pieces of feedback that we've heard for many years, it's a criticism for our state and some other states, is that, you know, it just takes too long to get things done. And a permitting dashboard and a funded system that would assist companies in their permitting efforts in Alaska would go a long way to addressing those longstanding concerns. So I think it's a great idea. I hope that we move forward with it because, you know, we've already seen at the federal level, it really does help accelerate projects. And at the end of the day, we want progress. We want growth in this state again. We don't want people to leave. We want this investment coming into Alaska. And we have to be doing things like this to show the investment community outside that we are serious about getting things done. And so anything like that that we can support, I'm fully supportive of.
Thank you very much, Representative Begich. We appreciate your staying time with us and answering all our questions.
Thank you.
Majority Leader Giesel.
Mr. President, I move that the joint session be adjourned.
Without objection, the joint session is adjourned.
The House will stand at ease.